Ria Zimbabwe tinokuchingamidza panapa pa Zim Local News Nancy uri musi wa 3 March Tuesday 2026 tichitenda susino kuyakwesa kwa maita pamwechete nekusarudza kwa maita channel ino kuti munge mchinzwo nawo ziri kuitika inside Zimbabwe. Tofatazo kuyeuchidzai kuti pane button rakanzi subscribe rinenge richiwanika pa screen penyu ngati vetinobaya vatariri richazotipa zvakare mamwe ma-update kuitira kuti tinge tichifambirana tiri pamwe chete. Right, muzanora Nancy takwigira isusu mashoko kubva kuna vajob Sikhala audio kubva kuna vajob Sikhala avo vatiri kuona isusu kuti Job Sikhala breaks silent on proposed 2030 constitutional changes. Vonyararidza nhau ze2030 vari kuvhikawo nerweseri vachidedzera kuti ngatirambei that constitutional changes iri kuda kuitwa nebato reZanu-PF. Right, saka nyaya iyoyo iri mumadzipepa nhau ende nyaya iyoyo iri kupisa yapa kuti isusu veZim Local News tinge tichidzifambira tichia tichikuwaridzirai pachena. Ivo handiti havatiwaridzirai pachena, isusu tinge tichia tichikuwaridzirai pachena vatariri vedu. Saka mukuona kwese kwachange chiita kana kuti mukutarira kwachange mukuteerera kwachange tichiita mashoko ava Job Sikhala tinokumbira isusu kuti mugobuy button rakanzi subscribe and support our YouTube channel. Just subscribe and support our YouTube channel. Right, rega tipinde isusu munyaya zvizere. Honorable Job Sikhala has broken his silence on the controversial proposed constitutional changes linked to the 2030 agenda, stepping firmly into one of the most sensitive political debate currently shaping Zimbabwe's future. In a detailed address shared by Change Radio, Sikhala spoke about Zimbabwe's current political climate and the growing national conversation around possible constitutional amendments. His remarks come at a time when discussions surrounding Vision 2030 and leadership continue to have intensified across the political divide. The 2030 debate centers on the consent that constitutional adjustment could potentially allow President Mnangagwa to remain in office beyond the limit set by Zimbabwe's 2030 constitution. The constitution currently restricts a president to 2 5-year terms. Any alteration to those limits would require a constitutional amendment process involving a 2/3 parliamentary majority and, depending on the nature of the changes, possibly a national referendum. While government officials and members of Zanu-PF have consistently stated that Vision 2030 is an economic transformation agenda aimed at turning Zimbabwe into an upper middle income economy, critics urge that political messaging around 2030 risks creating uncertainty about constitutional safeguards. In this address, Job Sikhala made it clear that he opposes any reform that could weaken democratic protection. He described the constitution as a people-driven document that reflects the collective will of Zimbabweans. According to Job Sikhala, constitutional stability is essential not only for democracy but also for economic confidence, investor trust, and national unity. He emphasized the importance of protecting presidential term limit, urging that they are cornerstone of accountability in any democratic system. He also called for genuine public consultation in any constitutional reform process, stressing that transparency and inclusivity are critical to maintaining legitimacy. Job Sikhala warned that altering key constitutional provision without broader consensus could deepen political division and trigger national tension. His remarks echo sentiments expressed by several opposition figures and civil society groups who have urged the authorities to publicly clarify their position on term limits and succession. On the other hand, supporters within Zanu-PF who maintain that constitutional amendment are part of normal legislative processes and insist that no formal proposal has been tabled to extend the presidential term. They urge that development goals under Vision 2030 should not be misinterpreted as political maneuvers. Despite those assurances, skepticism remains in some quarters, particularly because Zimbabwe's constitutional has already undergone amendment in recent years. For many citizens, the concern is not only about leadership tenure, but about perceiving institution checks and balance. The broader issue goes beyond individual political figures. Constitutional amendment have the power to reshape executive authority, judicial independence, parliamentary oversight, and the electoral system. That is why this debate carries significant national weight. At present, there is no official publication published amendment is specifically targeting presidential term limits to align with the 2030. However, the political discourse surrounding the issue continue to grow, fueled by speeches, grassroots mobilization, campaigns, and the public commentary from both supporters and critics. If an amendment were to be formally introduced, it would need substantial parliamentary support and possible approval through a referendum, depending on the specific clauses affected. This means that any major constitutional shift would require more than political rhetoric. It would demand legal procedure and national participation. Job Sikhala's intervention has therefore energize a public discussion about Zimbabwe's constitutional future. This message underscores a central question facing the country's: how to balance long-term development ambitions with the preservation of democratic principle. As Zimbabwe continues its journey towards Vision 2030, the debate over constitutional safeguards is likely to remain at the forefront of national politics. Whether this moment leads to reform, reassurance, or renewed polarization will depend on how leaders, lawmakers, and citizens navigate the conversation in the month ahead. Saka ndozi nyaya dziri kupisa inside Zimbabwe. Job Sikhala onyaradza nhau 2030. Saka ane audio kana kuti mashoko avari kutaura tichakusiya isusu muchiteereza kubva pamashoko ari apa. Don't forget to subscribe kana muchinge mapedza kuteereza mashoko aya munge muchisapota channel yenyu yeZim Local News.